This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Spouses Talking Houses with husband and wife real estate team Jennifer and Brian Frost. Everything you want to know about buying, selling, investing, and owning property. So let's get real about real estate.
Welcome back to Spouses Talking Houses. Here's a continuation of last week's conversation about what is your home worth? What about cost versus value?
Well, you alluded to this previously, but so we were talking about the pool situation, but it's also if somebody goes in and spends $100,000 on a kitchen remodel on a $300,000 home, it's just not going to equate what you put into it.
Yeah,
as far
it's
as
not going to
what
return
it's
on
worth.
investment.
You're not going to get a good return on investment. Although kitchens and baths are probably where you're going to get the highest amount of your money back.
I think so.
Finished basements, people spend a lot of money on their finished basement and they think they're going to get the same cost per square foot as the first and second floor, and that's just not true. And it's the same with the attic. You have to walk up another flight of stairs. It gets hotter up there. The attic square footage is just not worth as much as the first or second level.
Well, and the house doesn't have the same flow. If I have a 2,000 square foot home and then I finish my attic, it's a walk-up attic, and I have another 400 square feet there, and then I have a home next door, if I'm able to do regression analysis. I have a home next door that's got all the similar factors, except that it's 2,400 square feet laid out from day one. It's got a bigger foundation. Every room, when you go through it, it's going to be bigger. It's going to have a totally different flow.
Sure.
Being laid out on 2 stories versus being laid out on 3. So the National Association of Realtors has a 2019 remodeling impact report. And the highest return on investment as far as enjoyment, the 3 items were kitchen renovation, closet renovation, and a full interior paint job.
Wait a minute, hot tub is not on there?
Hot tub is not on there. And then the highest return on investment as far as value were a new fiberglass front door, new vinyl windows, and a new roof.
Yeah, I mean, particularly as an appraiser, when you're looking at the overall condition of the property, you're very concerned with what the age and condition of the major systems are.
Right.
The HVAC, the roof, the windows, the siding. Those are the most important. I mean, it's better to have a home with good bones and have all the major systems in good order than to have to deal with a lot of
maintenance.
And then you get into the septic system that can be very, very expensive, $10,000 to $15,000 to replace a septic system. So
there's an adjustment in the appraisal world for deferred maintenance.
Sure.
Right.
Well, again, deferred maintenance is used when you're looking at a cost approach to value, where you're coming up with a land value, and then you're coming up with what that would cost to build today, and then you're depreciating that back based on physical depreciation, but also functional obsolescence, as we referred to before, and deferred maintenance, obviously. So that's all going to come into a depreciation factor, and you're going to back that out. As far as deferred maintenance, when you're doing a sales comparison approach, is when you actually compare the subject property to the sales that we were talking about before. So sale 1, 2, 3, you're lining it up next to it and you're making adjustments for size, room count,
square footage. Yep.
Deferred maintenance would be in a condition. So it's an overall condition adjustment that you're making.
Okay.
You can make an adjustment for age. There's a separate line to do. I'm talking on a traditional Fannie Mae form.
Yep.
You could make a condition adjustment for a condition and also age.
All right. So we're bouncing back and forth a lot between appraisal and CMA, and I apologize for that. Or that's part of what we bring to it, is we have both perspectives. When we're doing a market analysis and a house has a brand new roof or a house needs a roof, the adjustments are not in line with the cost. So the cost of a roof, let's say, is $8,000. If your house needs a new roof, the buyer is going to they're going to deduct more than $8,000 when they buy that. And if you've just put a new roof on, your house did not increase in value by $8,000. It's like if I'm going to buy a car and I expect it to have tires and I expect them to have a couple, some tread left on them. If the car has 0 tires and it's on blocks and I have to tow it somewhere and I have to buy tires and I have to pay somebody to put tires on, I'm going to deduct more than the cost of the tires. If the car is used car, obviously I'm talking about, if the car has brand new tires, I'm going to be like, great, I expected the car to have functional tires anyway. That's already baked into the price. This is a nice little added bonus that I've got some extra time ahead of me before I need to invest in tires. So sometimes when you're spending money on your house and maintaining your house, you're just preserving the value. If you're replacing the refrigerator, well, the price of your house, the value of your house already included the fact that you had a functioning and current model refrigerator.
Well, actually, refrigerators are considered personal property.
So that's a bad.
But that's okay.
That's okay.
That's what I'm here for.
Right. The other thing is sometimes with home improvements, if you go for uniqueness, I'm guilty of this.
Are we ever? Yeah.
You might not, if you've over personalized the house. You not only did not add value by spending that money, you may have detracted from the value. Yeah.
Depending on how wild the style is and or how outdated it is. So.
Yeah, or how specific it is to your needs.
Right, and styles and colors and preferences change so quickly, as we've talked about in other episodes. That
so I had a client who shall remain nameless who had a really nice. Very classic cape in Nashua, and there was a half bath on the first floor that had been added sort of in a closet,
in a nook, yes.
In a nook, because it wasn't originally built that way. And then upstairs had a full bath, and then the homeowner redid that bath absolutely beautifully, looked like it could come out of a magazine, and took out the tub and put in a shower that had jets and steam and tile and all this stuff. When we put that on the market, the biggest piece of feedback that we got over and over again.
We hate the bathroom.
No, they loved the bathroom,
okay.
But there's no tub. There's no tub in the house.
Right. Okay.
There's no tub anywhere in the house. No tub, no tub, no tub, no tub.
People still use tubs?
Apparently, for their dogs and their kids.
Yeah, if you have pets, you
maybe.
Definitely need a tub, right?
Yeah. So again, cost, that was inexpensive and beautiful and very well done and very appealing improvement, but as far as value went,
it was unattractive to many buyers.
It took out something that the buyers valued, which was to have a tub.
Yeah.
So if there had been another bathroom somewhere in the house, that would not have been an issue at all.
Yeah, we'll just throw in a tub.
We'll just throw one outside.
I know a guy.
Put one in the garage. So we talked a little bit about. What I wanted to talk about was effective age.
Sure. What is it?
I've got three 1980s houses.
Sure. I mean, effective age, you take into account, so has the roof been done, like a roof been done over the last 5 years? Let's say you redid the kitchen, you redid the baths, you redid the windows 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You put in a new burner, 5 years ago. So now you're looking at a house that might have an effective age of only, 10 to 20 years versus the 40 years.
Because a lot of the components are from the 2000s.
Right. So
200,000.
Yeah. So you're looking at an overall effective age.
Yeah.
So what usually another rule of thumb is if a property is just generally well maintained, you're going to look at a property in most cases, and right away you're going to say the effective age is likely at least half of what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, versus its actual age.
Right.
And you can even say that about a 10-year-old property.
Yeah.
When you look at a 10-year-old property, even if nothing's been done to it, but it's been well maintained, you're going to say, well, it probably has an effective age of 5 years.
Okay.
But that's just a general rule of thumb.
That's just a general rule of thumb. So we have a few more things that we're going to add on. However, I would like to just quickly ask you, how's the market?
That's a good question. Well, we finally have some figures from April 2020, and this is New Hampshire Realtors as they report it. I guess the most The most glaring stat here is that new listings were down 40%, and this is for single-family homes. This is over April of 2019, and condos were down. New listings of condos were down over 50%.
And
this
we were already
this is all of New Hampshire.
And we were already in a low inventory situation coming into the spring market where we traditionally get inventory.
And just so you know, the date today is May 26, 2020.
Yep. And so this is the impact of COVID right here.
Well, no, you know what? I don't think we're going to really see the true impact. Well, the listings being down, yes.
Yeah.
But we're not going to really see the true impact of COVID until we get next month's data.
Closings,
I think that's really going to show us what has happened. Mm-hmm. But what I can tell you is that buyers are out in full force. Especially if you're in a sweet spot between $300,000 and $400,000 right now.
Oh yeah.
You're going to get multiple offers, bidding wars, just as it has been in the spring market for the last several years.
Yeah.
So I don't think that.
And the interest rates are still extremely attractive.
And we're going to have pent up demand when we're all get out to.
There has to be pent up supply somewhere.
Exactly.
I don't know where it is, but there has to be.
So the other major statistics here are this is for single family homes. 1 year change in closed sales. So closed sales were down 10%.
Okay.
Let's see. This is interesting though. The median sales price was up 11.5%.
Wow.
And that shows you that values they've been increasing.
Yeah, they're still there.
And they're still there, and they may be still going up. I don't know yet until we get more data here. But I know I can honestly say that I think they're holding steady during this COVID-19 period.
I think so too. Yeah.
I don't see any decline.
That's what I'm
most
seeing
markets.
on an individual basis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then of course the sales volume is down 5%, but that just goes along with the other.
Well,
stats.
to think that there's half of the inventory that we had, but the actual sales are only down 5 and 10%,
right,
shows you that what little we have is being bought. We might have to put our house on the market just to have something to sell.
We have a listing.
Okay, so we're almost done with this topic. I just had a few more things. How accurate can we be when we put a value on a property? How accurate should we be?
As an appraiser or as a salesperson?
Let's start with appraiser and then we'll go to agent. Yeah.
Sure. Appraising, it's not a science. It's still an opinion of value.
Yeah, you've been saying the computers can't really do it as accurately as you can.
I mean, well, just look at Zillow.
Okay.
So, but we base it on facts. We're supposed to support all of our findings, our adjustments. I generally say if you had 10 appraisers go out and appraise the same house, I would expect most of them to be within 3%.
That's what I would say too, yeah.
And when you're doing, I think we discussed this before, when you're doing a relocation appraisal, the relocation company will hire 2 appraisers to go out and appraise a home. Mm-hmm. If they don't come within 5%, they try to see if they can reconcile the differences, and if they don't, they bring in a 3rd appraiser.
Right.
Until they get within 5%.
And then they throw out the one that's the outlier.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
and it's not necessarily that the relocation companies do that. That would be the policy of their client, but that's a very typical a very typical method of doing it. I consider us to be accurate if we're within 3%. And usually when we are pricing a property in a CMA, we don't give a price, we give a range. And I tend to like to have my range be within 3%.
I would love to be able to provide a range value when doing an appraisal.
It would make sense, wouldn't it?
It would make sense. It's just I don't ever see it happening, but...
Yeah. And then when you do an adjusted CMA, usually we use that as the center point and we go about 1.5% up and 1.5% down. But we might adjust that a little bit depending on if you've got a couple of comps that are towards one direction or the other.
Sure, and it depends on what the particular market conditions are at that time.
Right, right.
But again, that's not a science either. So.
No. So, so it is a range, and then what we do is we look at that range, and one of the first things I have to say is, am I in a buyer's market, a seller's market, or a balanced market? You mentioned earlier that a balanced market is about a 6-month market. Of
supply, yeah.
I know that is the textbook definition. I don't think that's true anymore. Yeah.
I think it's more like 4
Yeah,
4 to 5 months maybe.
I would say 3 to 4. So we'll settle
Okay.
on 4 as
Sure.
the frost
Okay.
as
Definition.
the frost definition. Yeah, because the market has changed, the way that the market works, and things are a lot quicker because everybody has access to information so much faster and has access to financing so much faster. But in a buyer's market, what that means is that you have more sellers than buyers. And that is generally a declining market. That's generally a market where houses are taking 4+ months to sell. And the stats that we just gave you are clearly a seller's market. There are more buyers than there are sellers. Houses are moving off of the market very quickly. We've seen things go under agreement before we can even bring a buyer out to the house.
Yeah. Often when you see a property with, 2 to 4 days on market, it was actually under agreement, within that first couple of hours. It's just that they had to wait a day or two to get all the offers in.
Right, and then get something signed and then change it in the computer. Right. Exactly. And a balanced market would be where you've got a nice even supply of houses and a nice even supply of buyers.
What's a balanced market?
We've been in a few of them. So,
it's been a while.
Exactly. The other stat that we see a lot is median price. What's the difference between a median price and an average price?
Well, the median is if you had 100 sales or 101 sales, you're looking at 50, whatever that.
What's the price of sale number 50 as they're ranked? Exactly.
And if there's an odd number, you take those two and then you average those two.
Okay. Yeah.
The average obviously is the average of all those 100 homes that you're looking at.
So I think the median is a little bit more of an accurate barometer than the average.
I think so in most cases too, because then you're throwing out the outliers,
right?
The really low prices, and also the very high end homes.
Yeah, you have a $4 million home that sells in the Lakes region, and then you average that in with the sale in that small town, and all of a sudden your average sales price just.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen all the time. So it depends on what period. If you're looking at a different period, that sale might not be in there. So
exactly.
Yes, so I agree with you. Median is usually the way to go.
I think probably the most misleading statistic is price per square foot.
I have to agree with that too, because especially when we're listing homes, agents tend to like to include finished basement space, and as we talked about before, finished attic space, which brings, when you add all that in, it lowers the price per square foot,
right?
And vice versa. So, that can be very deceiving. So,
well, and also price per square foot it's taking into it's averaging in things like how much acreage there is, how many bathrooms there are, what condition the property is.
Sure.
It'd be like if I said, what's the average height and weight of Ben, you, and I? We can run the numbers, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I do look at, and we included in our market analysis, what the average price per square foot is on our comparables, just because if there is something a little bit out of whack, like if one of them is way off of a range from the other, then it tells me to look a little further.
Yeah, look deeper into it, find out why is that the case.
Right.
So as I said, when I break it down, I'm always breaking down the gross living area, which does not include any basement space below grade, and it also doesn't include any attic space. If there's attic space that's finished, I'm breaking that out and doing it separately.
You're adjusting for that.
So that way, I am comparing apples to apples as far as the first and second floor square footage.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other things that we track when we do a market analysis is what are the days on market of the for sale properties, the pending properties, and the sold properties. You just did 2 CMAs, and one of them, the average was 20 days on the market, and the other one, the average was 36 days on the market. So that goes right back to the fact that we're still in a seller's market.
Yeah, I mean, I do appraising throughout southern New Hampshire. I do CMAs throughout northeast Massachusetts. But it's rare that if you see a property that's been on the market for over 60 days, it's overpriced or there's something wrong with the property.
Right. And even if there isn't, that's what everybody's question is going to be.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. If you see a property on there for, 167 days, it's either well overpriced or everybody's seen it in this market.
What I say is that it's been picked over. Everybody's
Right.
seen it. Everybody's passed on it.
Right.
The question
And they're not
is
coming
why.
back to it.
And they're not coming back to it, which is unfortunate in some cases.
Yes.
The other thing
But might be an opportunity for some people too.
That's true. The other thing that we look at is the list to sales price ratio, and both of the CMAs that you just did, they were at 101%.
Yeah, I'm finding that's the case. It's been the case for at least 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
In most of the markets that we deal with, and we analyze that on the appraisal side. For every appraisal, we want to know what that is, because if the lender sees that it's not, they always want us to make adjustments to those active listings and pendings based
Okay.
on what the market conditions are.
Okay.
And that's
based on what the sales did.
right. And,
Yeah.
and for the last year or two, in most cases, we're getting 99 to 100%, and even higher
Right.
in some cases. So what I'll do is I'll explain to the lender, this is what the list to sale price ratios are, and that's why I'm not adjusting these actives and pendings.
It's hard when the market is at 99 or 101% of list price, because a seller then says, well, I expect to get my list price. Well, that all depends on how accurate your list price was to the value of the house.
Yeah, I mean, if you're unreasonable about what your list price expectations are, you're not going to get it.
You're not going to get it.
it.
So the whole time that I've been in this business, from 1985 to today, those list to sales price ratios have stayed between 95 and 101, 102%. And what that says to me is not that that people don't negotiate. What it says to me is that buyers go and they look at homes and they comparison shop, and out of 10 homes, they're going to go for the one that they like the most, that gives the most value, and that's the one they're going to make the offer on. So until you adjust your price to be within the accurate range, it's just not selling, and so it doesn't end up in that bracket. One of the things that we also watch on a monthly basis is the absorption rates in our towns and in our communities. And, once we get into the higher price brackets in any town, we're not seeing so much of that seller's market anymore. And we probably never should and never will, because if you think about a pyramid, your higher priced, higher end homes are a smaller segment of the market. There are less of those homes, there are less of those buyers. And so they do tend to have higher times on market. Right now I'm looking at, for example, Londonderry. We are in a buyer's market up to $500,000, and then we go more into a balanced market at $500,000 to $700,000. Okay, I'm looking at Wyndham. Wyndham is the same thing. We're in a buyer's market right up until $700,000, and then a seller's market. We're in a seller's market, which is better for sellers, up to $700,000. And then once we go from $700,000 to $1 million, it actually becomes more of a buyer's market.
Which makes sense.
And also those homes tend to be more personalized.
Oh, no doubt.
So as far as the way that it was built, all the improvements that were done, they're more unique, they're more personalized.
Just a lot more features to consider.
Longer days on the market. Exactly. So let's talk about a couple of myths and mistakes we've mentioned a few along the way, but one that I would say is comparing to active listings. I think my house is worth $400 because the house down the street is listed for $400.
You can list a property for whatever you want.
Yeah, that house could have listed for $200. They could have listed for $600.
Right.
Doesn't mean anything.
I mean, it could mean something, but doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right. The other thing that the internet has helped us with this is, because I don't hear it as much as I used to, is, well, I need to price it at $400 because I need $400.
Or my brother told me to.
Yeah. Your buyer's not going to make an offer based on what you need, and their lender's not going to lend based on what you need.
It always comes back to willing buyer and seller.
Yeah.
I mean, that is true market value. Even, an appraisal, when you're doing an appraisal for a sale, that's not actually the market value. The market value is
it's the transaction.
What's on the contract and what it actually closes for.
Exactly.
That's the market value.
That's what makes the market. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other myth is we can wait. We want to get higher so we can wait. A couple of things play in there. One is, I think that used to be more true. When I first started in this business, we published the listings in listing books. They came out every 2 weeks. If you wanted to know what was on the market, there were classified ads, and you called your agent and you found out what was in the listing book. And if you made a price adjustment, it came out in the next listing book, which was 2 weeks later. So it took a lot longer to expose the property to the market than it does today. Today, we put a property on the market. We've got the photos, we've got the price, we've got all the public records, and everybody can see it. Every agent, every buyer.
Pretty much immediately.
Pretty much immediately. So within 2 weeks, that market has spoken on that house. We already know. I know within 2 weeks.
In these particular
marketings.
In the buyer's market.
Right. And so as we talked about before, if your house becomes stale on the market, you can then price it appropriately. But because it's stale on the market, you might end up having to go even under the appropriate price.
Right, you're just not going to get as many views at that point, I don't believe, as you would have during that first initial, like you like to say, it's throwing a rock into a big pond, and you just want to make the biggest splash you can.
Biggest splash you can. And after that, you can make ripples, and I can continue ripples for a long time, but it's not going to be the same as that first splash. What you paid for the house has very little impact unless you happen to buy the house within the last 3 months, because the market moves.
Yep.
Just like what I paid for stock doesn't have any impact on what its value is today.
And an appraisal is only as good as the effective date of the appraisal, which is typically the date that you go out and do the inspection.
Right.
So the next day, that appraisal, technically should be different.
Yeah. And especially when we've got external things like the COVID and, interest rates changing or mortgage qualifications tightening, anything external like that can make a difference.
Economic conditions,
yeah. Another mistake that I think that's pretty common or myth is to shop agents by CMA. I'm going to have a couple of agents give me prices on my house, and I'm going to go with the one who gives me the highest number. Well, unless the agent's going to write you a check, none of that matters. You're going to control what the list price is. The market is going to control what the offers are, and then the skill of your agent negotiating those offers is going to get you your best price. So to me, when you're looking at CMAs by more than one agent, what you want to know is who is more thorough and who has a proven strategy of being accurate.
And who is a really good negotiator.
And who's a really good,
that's where you earn your money.
Absolutely.
And I agree. I think a lot of agents, I think it's less these days, but I think a lot of agents in the past would just throw out a very high CMA number.
To get them to sign.
Right. And then, they get sucked in, and then, it might sell 3 months down the road when it should have sold, within 2 weeks, because they just overpriced it.
Yeah.
Because we all want to hear our property's worth, $1 million.
Well, we should hopefully have a personal attachment to our home. And,
of course.
And the greater your personal attachment, the
more it's worth.
The less realistic you're going to be about the value. Exactly. Another expectation that I need to work on with people is that they want top price, but they don't want to put the house in top condition. If you want top price, you've got to be in top condition.
What, I have to fix the roof?
You got to take care of all those little things. All those little things that you don't want to do on your weekend, the buyer definitely doesn't want to do on their weekend. Yeah.
Especially safety issues and curb appeal issues,
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. You just, when you drive up to a house, you don't want to be going, oh, look at that, the railing's falling off, or,
right.
You don't even want to go into the house at that point.
Yeah.
So, and those are usually the easiest things for the homeowner to do.
Exactly.
Even if they're not, necessarily handy or.
And the counter I might get from the homeowner is, "Well, tell the people it's easy." I'm like, just do it. If it's easy, just do it.
Exactly.
It goes both ways. So we will do a future episode on pricing strategy. We're not going to talk about that today. This has gone on a little bit longer than I expected, but this is definitely our happy place talking about house values. So I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to get real about real estate and talk about what your home is worth. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast, and send us any questions that you'd like to have answered. Thank you.
Music courtesy of the Eric Lindbergh Trio. Please visit his website at www.ericlindberghworld.com. Jennifer and Brian are licensed to practice real estate in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Brian is also a certified general appraiser in New Hampshire. They are not lawyers, accountants, home inspectors, or therapists. Real estate customs and rules may be different in your area. Each Keller Williams Realty office is independently owned and operated. The realtor name is trademarked to members of the National Association of Realtors. If you are currently under contract with a real estate agent, this is not intended as a solicitation. Views expressed on this podcast by Jennifer may not be shared by Brian and vice versa, nor are they necessarily the views of Keller Williams Realty.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.